Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Sage02 Love, here with your AEW Dynamite review. First things first, in the pro wrestling world, I want to give my thoughts and my condolences to the Laurinaitis family and the whole Laurinaitis family. The news today that Road Warrior Animal passed away. Of course, the Legion of Doom, as you know, were a prominent tag team in the 90s, probably the most prolific tag team, you could say, arguably the best tag team. When I was young, really young, I heard about them. I would see clips of them, matches. Being born in the late 90s, the very late 90s, early 2000s, didn't know much of them, but you could get a sense that with hearing about them that they were prolific and one of the best tag teams, arguably the best tag team ever in pro wrestling, the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. Obviously, with Hawk passing in 2003, and then Animal now passing yesterday. I mean, on the bright side, they're reunited, but it's so tough to think about that they're both the best, arguably the best tag team is gone. But my condolences out to the Laurinaitis family. The one thing I remember about Animal mostly, because of course I was born in the late 90s, early 2000s. In 2005, when Animal he teamed up with Dynamite and kind of like a homage to Legion of Doom type with Animal and Dynamite, and they at the Great American Bash defeated Eminem for the tag team championships. And then after the match, Animal said, "This for you, Hawk." That was a fun moment. And them winning the tag 2000, paying homage to Hawk. But so I wanted to get that out. Like I said, thank you guys for joining me. If you're new to the podcast, like and subscribe. Click on that bell. Now getting into the AEW show. Well, first, so actually, before I go over the show that happened on Wednesday night, there was a edition of Late Night Dynamite on Tuesday night following the NBA playoff game between the Nuggets and the Lakers. There was a 3-match Late Night Dynamite short episode. It was Brandy Rhodes versus Anna Jay it was Ben Carter making his AEW debut versus Scorpio Sky, and then in the main event, it was Matt Sydal versus Sean Spears. So it was more like a version of AEW Dark that was on TNT. Actually scored in more than 500,000 viewers. So good to see, even though the matches were with the biggest talent on the episode. So it was cool to see. So Anna Jay beat Brandy Rhodes. She, I mean, this has been spewing for weeks. Because of obviously what happened, Brodie Lee, the Dark Order, and the Nightmare Family. When Brodie Lee won the TNT Championship from Cody, and Anna Jay choking out Brandy Rhodes on that same night. So there's purpose with this match, but Anna Jay won with a rear naked choke again. Brandy pressed out. I mean, Brandy, again, she's the wife of Cody, but at the same time, we don't really need to see her in matches on Dynamite. Although this wasn't Dynamite, this was late night Dynamite per se. So, I mean, it was okay. Building up Anna Jay. She seems to be coming into her own, which is a nice spot. So then we got Scorpio Sky being Ben Carter, who's making his AEW debut. Ben Carter, he has a nice look. He kind of reminds me of, I would say, he has a little bit of Brian Kendrick, but also a little bit of edge in him, in a way. Kind of like a mix, per se. But he fared well. Scorpio Sky, of course, won with TKO. Winning the nice showing by Ben Carter. Then the main event, we had Matt Sydal versus Sean Spears. I mean, if only this was his actual main event, or his actual in-ring debut, Matt Sydal, instead of having to see that meme go on for eternity, him at All Out going for air Sydal and slipping in off the top rope and crashing and burning in his debut. If only this was his debut, it would probably been a little sweeter instead of having to see that meme that's going to go on forever. But this was a pretty solid match. Sean Spears, he hasn't really been on Dynamite in weeks. However, both these guys can bring it. Spears is putting together a really solid record. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually down the line he gets a TNT Championship title match, whether that's against Brodie Lee, whether that's against someone else. But Spears won. Sydal, he went for a sunset flip. Spears hit him with the glove. and then hit the C4 Death Valley Driver for the win. Good win for Spears. Seidel, it's good to see that he's all elite. Hopefully now on AEW Dark, he can spew some wins together and go from there. So that was my. So now going from late night Dynamite to the actual show, AEW Dynamite. Last night was a solid show. We had 2 top matches. TNT Championship match between Orange Cassidy and Brodie Lee. We had Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in the main event for the AEW World Championship because Lance Archer, there was supposed to be a 6-man tag between Jon Moxley, Will Hobbs, Darby Allin versus Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, and Lance Archer. However, I saw yesterday on social media how that the match was changed. So I looked into it, and it was pretty telling that Lance Archer, he tested positive for COVID. Now, excuse the axe incident in the thumbnail, but I didn't realize that we had actually 3 weeks until the anniversary show, which is October 14th. So, excuse that. Sorry. But yeah. So Archer obviously is been gonna be in quarantine. Hope he heals up quick, and then on the anniversary show, we'll be getting Jon Moxley versus Lance Archer for the AEW World Championship. Should be fun. But yeah, we had a different main event. Pretty good one in Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Along with the TNT Championship match and more. Also, Miro's in-ring debut. So, getting into the show. So, the show started off with Kip Sabian and Miro, who looked great. I looked excited to be there. First, Joey Janela and Sunny Kiss. Now, I get it that Joey Janela and Sunny Kiss are a tag team. They have been around. They have been in a few matches with each other. And they're not really being pushed at the moment. However, Sunny Kiss is not my cup of tea. That's all I'll say. I wouldn't mind if it was just Miro versus Joey Janela, or if it was, considering we've seen Kip Sabian and Joey Janela. Obviously, there was a little bit of story there because Joey Janela and Penelope Ford obviously used a date, and now Kip Sabian is getting married to Penelope Ford. So there was a little promo video by Janela before the match. So that was nice, but the story of this match was about how was Miro gonna look. He pretty much decimated Joey Janela and Sunny Kiss, and that's what you like to see. In the end, he hit a boot or a super kick, and then made Sunny Kiss tap out with, I assume he's going to call it a different name, but the Acolyte, the Camel Clutch, like submission hold. But yeah, so good win for Kip Sabian and Miro. after the match, Kingston came out. No music. He just came out, cut a promo, talking about his match with Moxley, basically explaining it. He talked about again how he was never eliminated from the Battle Royal. That's why he's getting this shot. And how 18 years says he deserves a title shot. And how he never sold out like Moxley. How Moxley went to the land of sports entertainers. How he stayed, but he stayed. He stayed with the fighters. He stayed with the outlaws. And he never danced with the devil. And he wanted to say some words to Moxley face to face. So he called out Moxley. Moxley came down from the seats, the stands. They came in the ring, got nose to nose with Eddie Kingston. They had some words, and then they were separated by officials and security. And that was that. So, what I liked is how Excalibur, he mentioned it on commentary. He mentioned how Archer, he tested positive for COVID, and he explained as to why it's going to be Moxley versus Kingston, basically. And Kingston basically edged that second part of the explanation. So that's a nice touch. You love the attention to detail. So after that, we got Evil Uno from the Dark Order versus Hangman on Page. This was a good match. Evil Uno, for a big guy, he can move. He can definitely. He is very good in the ring. And Kenny Omega was also on commentary. So getting into the match, it was a side slam by Hangman onto Uno on the apron, which had to hurt for any man the size of Uno. That would probably suck. So was a standing shooting star by Hangman for a 2. Then Uno, he caught Hangman out of the corner, delivered a boot and a senton atomico for the near fall. He countered another standing shooting star for a cradle for a near fall. Was a power bomb by Hangman, and then a buckshot lariat by Page for the win. That's 2 singles victories in a row for Page. And once again, Kenny, he exited early after the match. Still kind of furthering the story. Where is it going to end up? I predict that we'll eventually see a match between Kenny and Hangman, whether that's at Full Gear or Revolution. I would love to see a match between them two. But yeah, good win for Page and Evil Uno. Great showing by him. So next we had the interview by Tony Schiavone with Matt Jackson. Matt Jackson, he apologized for their actions as of late. Tony Schiavone talked about how it was basically the FTR that started all this, and in the way Matt Jackson thought he was ribbing him. So then Matt asked him for his phone, and then he smashed it a few times against the wall and cracked the screen basically. And then Matt took some dollar bills out, offered to pay for his phone. So then threw the dollar bills on the floor, and that was that. So I like the furthering of the intensity of the Young Bucks. I believe we're gonna get this match at Full Gear. Young Bucks are they're trying to take it to a new level, basically, and that's what you like to see. So next we had the first of our two championship matches: Orange Cassidy vs Brodie for TNT Championship. This was a solid match. Brodie came out with Dark Order. Orange Cassidy went for a dive to the outside, but he was caught by the other members of the Dark Order. And then Brodie came back in and hit a tope suicida on all the members while Orange Cassidy was being held up in the air by the Dark Order. So, had some good spots. Brodie hit a boss man slam for the near fall, getting back from the break. Orange Cassidy picked up at the end of the match. Hit diving DT, and then a tornado DT, along with the air crash for a 2 count. Then at the end of the match, Orange Cassidy went for the orange punch, but John Silvers came in and Brodie threw Silvers in front of him to Cassidy. Silvers took the fall, took the orange punch. Cassidy got hit with a power bomb, then a brutal discus lariat by Brodie for the win. Got took to the limit, but Brodie came out on top and is still your TNT champion. After the match, we heard Cody's music, and then Cody came out, returned back in black. The blonde hair is gone. Back to black hair for Cody. So he came out, basically decimated some of the members of Dark Order. Took apart Silver's leg and applied the figure 4. Brodie scattered away. Afterwards, coming back from break, Brodie cut a great promo on Cody. Basically challenging Cody. There was something with the dog collar. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be like maybe a dog collar match, or I'm not sure, but he didn't really specify. But yeah, solid promo by Brodie. Clearly, this is not over between Brodie and Cody. I can't wait to see another match between them two. So, next we have Matt Hardy come out with Private Party. Matt sold his knee injury from last week, limp to the ring. he came out and basically went over who could be potential suspects for what happened to him last week. And he talked about how Jericho and Hager were both poking fun at Hardy last week. So, and that he had the bat. So, Matt Hardy said that Chris Jericho is his prime suspect, and that'll be an asshole. So, after that, Chris Jericho and the Inner Circle came out. So, apparently it was Matt Hardy's birthday. Happy belated birthday, Matt. So, Matt Hardy, well, first of all, Chris Jericho said, "Oh, happy birthday, Matt." So then Jericho said, "Who gives a shit?" So Chris Jericho basically denied that he was the one to take out Matt Hardy, and that Private Party then talked about their match for last week. It got a little antsy. Isaiah Cassidy then challenged Chris Jericho to a match next week and basically said, "Well, what happens if a 23-year-old kid not only beats you, but makes you my le champion bitch?" So then that was that. And apparently next week, we got Chris Jericho for Isaiah Cassidy, a Private Party. Should be interesting. See how Jericho goes with this, with the really young Isaiah Cassidy. Should be an interesting showcase for Cassidy. So, next we had Tully Blanchard out with FTR. They talked about how they talked with the officials of AEW and that how they designed a FTR 20-minute showcase for FTR, and that'll start next week versus SCU, and that they said they were going to take on the challengers of Best Friends and the Young Bucks. Excuse me. Then they talked trash about the Best Friends, and then the Best Friends came out. Obviously, still hurt, and they talked about their fight they had in the parking lot with Santana Ortiz, and they said they've been through a war, and how they said yes, they're not 100%, but why not they do it now? So then FTR said, why not get a referee out here? So a referee came out, he was about to call the bell, and then Dax Harwood, he pulled the referee's arm right before he's going to call for the bell. And then Cash said, but not tonight. He says, well, you guys are clearly not 100%. We want to let you rest and call Tully in a couple weeks, and then maybe they'll give you a shot. So then Chuck Taylor got on the mic and said, well, say what you want about Santana Ortiz, but at least they stepped up to the challenge and they didn't back away like a bed of weenies. So there was that. But yeah, we got SCU versus FTR next week. Should be interesting. I mean, the first match between them was very good. This one should be pretty good as well. And then I assume then we're going to have FTR first best friends, and then eventually we get the build towards Young Bucks and FTR. So then we had Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida versus Diamante and Ivelisse. All four of these women have been a solid foundation so far for the women's division. And it's clear that the women's division is making strides and improvement. That's what you'll have to see because for months it has been their Achilles heel. Now, with Thunder Rosa being there, if there's been good news for AEW because of the pandemic, it's been because Thunder Rosa and NWA, that partnership is brewing. So, I mean, eventually, for now, it's Thunder Rosa. Potentially, it could be Nick Aldis. They can bring in more talent to help work from NWA for AEW. That has been that's been the one shining light mostly for AEW when it's come to this pandemic. They still probably would struck a deal together, but with the pandemic and the shutdown of NWA, it's kind of further along the Thunder Rosa now to AEW. So, pretty solid match. Of course, the Thunder Rosa Evilise match last week was kind of stiff. So, curious how they're going to respond this week. Still was a decent match. Hikaru Shida pinned Diamante with the running knee strike for the win. Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida held up their titles side by side. I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch, title for title. I wouldn't mind that at all. But the foundation of the women's division has been getting better and better. Thank you to Thunder Rosa and, I mean, Chris Statlander. She's still out with her torn ACL. Britt Baker should be back healthy. Big Swole, it's a question. She has to get better. You have now Rose. However, Shauna should be back next month. Yeah. Although restrictions have limited the quantity of the women's division, they're still making strides, and that's what you like to see. So, next we had Chris Jericho. This was hilarious. So, Chris Jericho was backstage with Dasha Gonzalez. She was being, or excuse me, he was being interviewed. He talked about his match with Isaiah Cassidy next week. And then MJF came in and talked about how being called out by Isaiah Cassidy, that was deplorable. And they both complimented each other, saying, well, coming from you, that is big. And then they both said they're great. And they both said simultaneously, "So why'd you call me a loser?" So then they both said, "Well, I saw this on social media. Uh, I saw you call me that last week on Dynamite." So uh, MJF said that he was calling Jericho loser. He was calling the limo drivers losers, considering they almost had a head-on collision. And could you imagine if they injured the two top stars in AEW? And Jericho was like, correct. And that the limo driver made him spill his coffee on him. Uh, so yeah, he's a loser. And Jericho said, "Well, I wasn't calling you a loser. I was calling Tony Schiavone a loser." So they both mocked Tony Schiavone, and they both said, "Well, you're all right." And then they said simultaneously, "Thanks, Sasha." That was what mocked. Excuse me. MJF and Jericho are great. They're just great. Yeah. So then after we get to the main event, Moxley versus Eddie Kingston. This was a hard-hitting affair. Uh, I mean, just like a brawl, like two bulls going at it, and it was just a physical fight. Um, so they both exchanged slaps. They both exchanged hard chops. It was just, um, geez. So then they file outside, and then back in the ring. Moxley, he was dumped on his head with silo suplexes uh, by Kingston for a 2 count. And then Kingston, he went for his spinning back fist finisher, but Moxley countered and went for a sleeper hold. But then, excuse me, Kingston fought out of it, but Moxley transitioned to a bulldog choke. Uh, Kingston passed out and Moxley retained. So then afterwards, the Lucha Brothers came out and attacked Jon Moxley, and then Will Hobbs came out, uh, landed a big spine buster on Rey Fenix, and then attacked Pentagon, and then Darby Allin came out to help make the save, and then Ricky Starks then came out, attacked Darby Allin. Apparently next week we're going to get Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks, either that or next week. Should be interesting. So then Ricky Starks laid out Darby Allin, and then they were all standing over the bodies of Hobbs, Moxley, and Darby Allin. I would not mind. Well, I don't think. Well, they said that it's probably not over between Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. A feud between them, I would love to see them a build, and I mean they could easily go for a rematch between them two. I'm not sure. We'll see, but overall, this was a fun show. Next week, I believe it's Ricky Starks, Darby Allin, and then much more. October 7th, it's going to be the celebration of Chris Jericho. It's going to be 30 years of Jericho. And then, of course, on October 14th, it'll be the anniversary show. Moxley versus Archer for the AEW World Championship. Should be fun. But overall, tonight's Dynamite was fun. Some solid matches, building up storylines. Nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, this AEW Dynamite review. Thank you all. Hope you all being safe. I'll see you all on Tuesday with Sports View topics.